A reminder, as with all of Arizona Horizon's debates, this is not a formal exercise. It's an open exchange of ideas between candidates running for the state's highest office. As such, interjections, even interruptions, are allowed, provided that all sides get a fair shake, and we will do our best to see that that happens. Joining us for tonight's gubernatorial debate in alphabetical order, Republican incumbent Governor Doug Ducey, Democrat and ASU education professor David Garcia, and Green Party candidate Angel Torres, who works in the airline industry. Each candidate will now give a 1-minute opening statement with that order determined by random selection. Closing statements will be given in reverse order at the end of the debate. We begin with David Garcia.
Thank you. My name is David Garcia, and I am running to be governor of my home state. My story is Arizona's story. I'm a fourth-generation Arizonan, a product of Arizona's public schools, the first in my family to graduate from college, an Army veteran, and a father of 2 amazing daughters. And I am running to build the state that built me. I jumped into this race because at the end of 4 years, Doug Ducey's administration is leaving behind half measures and broken promises. We are still in an education crisis, one of the worst places in the country for teachers. We yet to have money to patrol our highways 24/7. And he is building an economy that is built for those at the top instead of the rest of Arizona. We need somebody who is going to be a leader and not a follower. Someone who's going to look out for everyday Arizonans and is going to make sure they're not a rubber stamp for Trump. I'm ready to lead because I am from us, for us. And I will be the governor that will look out for everyday Arizonans. And I'd be honored to have your vote.
All right. Thank you very much. And now, Angel Torres' opening statement.
Hello, my name is Angel Torres. I am the Green Party candidate for governor. I'm a native Arizonan. I've worked in the airline industry for the past 31 years, and I'm a member and union steward for Teamsters Local 104 here in Arizona. My campaign priorities are to strengthen our economy by getting more workers organized into the union of their choice, fully funding our K-12 public schools by ensuring that everyone pays their fair share in taxes, and by organizing for a Medicare for All system while also promoting naturopathic medical care as a way to lower costs and improve healthcare outcomes. Thanks for watching this evening, and I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we turn to Governor Doug Ducey.
Thank you, Ted. My name is Doug Ducey, and on behalf of my wife, Angela, we'll be married 28 years this October, and my 3 sons, Jack, Joe, and Sam, it has been my honor to be your governor these past 4 years. I've worked very hard to bring business principles to Arizona state government, and our state is very different today. 4 years ago, our budget was broken. Our education system was mired in years-long lawsuits, and our economy was flat. Today, our budget is balanced. Those lawsuits are behind us, and our economy is booming so much that we've been able to get a 20% pay increase for our teachers in K-12 education, with more to follow. Our relationship with Mexico has never been better, and we've been able to focus on securing the border as well. I'm running for re-election because I want to secure Arizona's future, and there's a lot more left to do. I'm looking forward to tonight's discussion.
All right. Thank you all very much. Let's get things started. David Garcia, why should voters make a change now?
Voters should make a change now because after 4 years, our education system remains in crisis. At the end of Doug Ducey's administration, 75,000 teachers walked out because we are still one of the last in the country in education. They were demanding more, and they did not get what they were demanding. In addition, in education, Ducey's signature bill, which is the vouchers, is on the ballot because Arizona voters aren't looking for that. They do not want outside interest in Arizona. And then last, the most important one, with respect to economic development, the key area we need to develop is education specifically. And so we need a change in education. It's Arizona's #1 issue. It is my strength. It is Ducey's weakness, and it's going to be the difference.
His strength, your weakness. How do you
First,
respond?
let me address, I'll be held accountable for the last 3+ years. of Arizona state education, not for the past 20 years. And Ted, if I would have sat here 3 years ago and said, hey, we're going to settle these lawsuits in a way that gets $3.5 billion additional dollars into K-12 education, that we're going to extend Proposition 301, that we're going to create a teachers academy here in the state of Arizona, and we're going to have a 20% pay increase for our teachers by school year 2020, I think a lot of people would say that's a pretty good start. And that's what we've been able to accomplish. And people are saying it's not enough. And I agree with them. There's more left to do. But like I said, I was in a straitjacket 4 years ago. We had a $1 billion deficit in our state budget. We had to dig out of that hole. We've been adding resources into K-12 education. And our education system is actually improving. In math and reading, we're the fastest improving education system in the country. That's a testament to our hardworking teachers. They earned and deserved this raise, and I'm proud that I could sign the legislation to get it to them.
Angel, what do you make of all this?
Well, the reason I'm running for governor is to bring the perspective of working people to our electoral politics. It's a point of view, a perspective that we rarely hear in politics. I'm a union member, and the way that we've been able to improve our standard of living is because of our union contract. So what I want to do as governor is I want to be able to help create worker-owned businesses, get more people organized into the union of their choice, and I want to bring that perspective to electoral politics.
Let's get back to education here. Respond to the governor here.
Yeah,
he makes it sound like things are going pretty well.
Not at all. You had 75,000 teachers walk out and demand more. The 20% raise is 8% max today, with more to come tomorrow. The Teachers Academy is a half measure. The Teachers Academy will not address the largest teacher shortage we have in this state right now. And in addition, candidate Ducey also mentioned that he is in favor of lowering income taxes down to 30%. How do you make this happen by lowering income taxes down to zero? So what we have here is our teachers are demanding more. Our teachers are walking out, and they understand that what has been done so far is not enough. A report came out today that has the second lowest.
Let him respond to what you just said.
Yes. First of all, our teachers are going to have a 20% pay increase. 10% of that has gone out. In Washington Elementary, 15% has gone out. In Yuma, 12% has gone out. So these dollars are flowing to our teachers, and like I said, they've appropriated them. But David's someone who likes to talk about how much he cares about public education. He was nowhere to be found on Proposition 123. He worked against Proposition 301, and he actually encouraged people to vote against the teacher pay increase. David's plan was to double income taxes in the state of Arizona. It would have driven our economy off a cliff. David Garcia's ideas are wrong for Arizona. They're risky. In many cases, they're radical. And doubling our income tax would certainly be reckless to our state's economy.
Are those votes accurate? Is what he's saying accurate?
Let me be clear. That was that was a plan that I supported on behalf of our teachers. It is our teachers that brought that plan forward because they are looking for solutions. And it was a stacked Supreme Court that took that voice away and that vote away.
That's not true,
from
David.
Arizona.
David Garcia tried to
voters.
rig an election, and the Supreme Court caught him. You're going to see David Garcia be very deceiving on a number of issues tonight. Like I said, he talks about public education, but he's really much more of a politician. The Supreme Court caught David Garcia trying to rig an election and mislead voters and deceive them, and they kicked this initiative off the ballot. There's 5 other initiatives on the ballot.
David Garcia caught, the Supreme Court caught me rigging an election. There is no evidence at all. What we have here is the teachers demanding more. It is our teachers that
we're
are
delivering
out there
them more, David.
You're not delivering
we are
more. You have also mentioned bringing income taxes down to zero. How do you continue to move forward with a 20 by 20 plan and bring income taxes down to zero?
Well, like I said, right now our economy is booming. We've got 230,000 new private sector jobs here, 300 companies that have relocated here. We've got a record balance in our general fund, and we have appropriated these dollars to our teachers. Our teachers have, like I said, they deserve these dollars. So I want to continue to grow our economy, and then I've got a plan that is achievable in K-12 education that will reward our teachers. Your plan was to double income taxes in the state of Arizona. Now it's that's no longer on the ballot. And you even said, David, if that were to pass, that's not enough. There's still more that needs to be done in terms of taking more dollars from hard-working Arizonans.
I am standing with our teachers who have some very specific goals that they want to see accomplished to improve their public schools and to help their students. And one of them is to return the $1.1 billion back into our budget. In addition, one of the things we've got to continue to think about here is as we go forward, we have an amazing teacher shortage. We have a very high teacher shortage that the Teacher Academy is not going to come close to addressing. In education, we have to do more. And from my perspective, the governor has a start. There's a promise for the future. But we're going to hear that theme the entire thing tonight. We're going to hear this over and over again.
We will, but we got to hear from Angel first.
Well, the governor said that we have a booming economy, but there was an article in Cronkite News last Monday that says that 1 in 7 Arizonans is living in poverty. So what I want to do is my plan is to strengthen the economy, get more workers organized into the union of their choice, create worker-owned businesses, use the purchasing power of our anchor institutions, our universities, our hospitals, and help strengthen the economy. We can't have a booming economy. I mean, the economy is booming for the top 1%, for the people who have the money to invest in Wall Street. But for workers, our economy is not booming.
I want to touch on the economy a bit and then come back to education. But our economy is booming. We've got more jobs available in the state of Arizona than we have people to fill them, and paychecks are growing in the state of Arizona as well. Arizona is number 3 in terms of paycheck increases across the country. But let me talk about the Teachers Academy. David, there's a lot of people that are my age or older, and they found a mission in public K-12 education, and they came out of university in the 80s, and they've been in a classroom for 30 years, and they are retiring, and they've earned that retirement. But there could be any one of 48 governors in the United States sitting here that is also facing a teacher shortage. In Arizona, we're doing some things about it. Number one, this teacher pay increase is going to take teachers' pay from 40th to 16th in the nation. Number two, the Teachers Academy is going to say to young people that are in university right now that if they choose public education, they'll graduate debt-free with a job waiting.
How many teachers are going to be affected by this?
Well, let me tell you right now, this the Teachers College at ASU enrollment is up 9%.
But what kind of numbers are we talking about compared to the shortage of teachers in the state?
Well, there's a third prong to what we're doing here. I talked in my State of the State of probably the most honorable Arizonan, Sandra Day O'Connor, who when she retired from the United States Supreme Court wouldn't have been deemed eligible to teach government in a public high school. We've got a lot of talent in our community. I want to give principals and superintendents the ability to make the decision to hire someone that can go to the front of the classroom and help our young people inside of the classrooms. And Ted, let's measure ourselves by the results of our kids in math, reading, and science in 4th and 8th grade, and Arizona is leading the country in improvement.
Ted, you're going to see a theme here tonight. We had a crisis when Doug Ducey walked into office, and we have a crisis when he's leaving office. He doesn't have numbers for the Teacher Academy because it's not enough. It is a start. It is a half measure. What we have here is a series of half measures and broken promises. When you came into office, you said that education was the most critical issue. And yet here we are with two initiatives, one initiative at least on the ballot, teachers walking out, and a promise for gains in the future and for something to happen
David,
in the future.
It's not a promise.
Will you let me finish?
It's advance
Will you let me
appropriated.
finish? And with respect to other governors, nearly every state has also had an increase in jobs. And Arizona's job growth rate, while it looks impressive, is actually behind every single one of our other Western neighbors. We are consistently and routinely behind Nevada and Washington and Oregon and the rest of our Western neighbors. And the number one reason why, lack of investment in K-12 public education and a lack of investment in a highly trained workforce. The one area where we need to
peer
change.
states, are we doing
We
as
are
well
leading
as we should?
in the Western United States. And I said that David is going to deceive you on public education. His ideas on education and doubling our funding is almost as radical as his views on the border. But I would say to our viewers to go to factcheckgarcia.com. Factcheckgarcia.com. If you want to see David in his own words of what he has said is happening in the state and his radical plans to move the state forward. Now, Ted,
Yes.
let's look at the numbers, okay? Maricopa County is the fastest growing county in the country. There's 3,144 counties in this nation. People vote with their feet. Arizona is winning, and I agree more needs to be done for K-12 education, but David hasn't answered why he asked people to vote against the 20% teacher pay increase, why he wasn't there for Proposition 301, why he worked against Proposition 301 being extended. I mean, David,
Okay,
you're
please
talking about
respond.
public education. You've been nowhere to be found.
Let's start with a couple of things here. Look, with respect to job growth, this will be the first fact check. We are behind routinely the rest of our Western neighbors in job growth, with the exception of New Mexico. And the number one reason why is a lack of investment in education and the failure to have a highly trained workforce. So that is absolutely
Please explain your votes on 301 and 123.
I didn't vote on
But your
301.
positions.
I didn't vote on 301.
Your positions on 301 and 123.
I was in favor of 123. And I favored 123 because Doug Ducey said that step 4 would be positive for Arizona. And step 4 was universal vouchers. And like a lot of parents, I felt betrayed that after putting some faith in trying to move our state forward, what happened next was a universal voucher program that would devastate public education.
So,
David, I did speak out in
it
favor.
sounds like he had a reason to be against that.
Well, first, David asked legislators to vote against the 20% pay increase. But let me talk. There are no vouchers in the state of Arizona. The Supreme Court deemed them unconstitutional. What we have are educational savings accounts. And these are for parents in special situations, like Kathy Visser, who has a son who was diagnosed with cerebral palsy and today suffers from autism. The only way Kathy's been able to find the educational therapy for her son is these educational savings accounts. There's also a story in the Arizona Republic about a very special young man who's blind. He scored 2 touchdowns in his freshman football game, and his educational savings account allowed him to buy Braille books.
Well,
David would want to take this away from all Arizona students, and I'm not going to let him do it. I'm for more choice. David's for less.
Let's talk about what the system was designed for in the first place, which were these special needs students. We now see attempts to make this universal for all students. Do you support that move?
I support the move to expand it.
How much?
By the law that I signed, 5,000 kids a year for the next 5 years. Next 6 years. We have 1,100,000 children in the state of Arizona. I care about every one of them. I want them to have access to an affordable and accessible and excellent education. Now, Kathy Visser, who has a son with a special situation, the young man who's blind, and this has helped him buy his Braille books, but there's some of these children, David, that don't fall into these special pre-designated populations. What's their answer?
What about a 30,000 cap? 30,000 student cap. That's what we got
Well,
right
first
now.
off, let's start with, of the 1.1 million children in Arizona, who I care for too, 2 of them are my daughters. My daughters are in Arizona public schools because when I say I'm in this for everybody, I'm in it for mine. So my daughters are in public schools. You can answer that for yourself. But in addition, the empowerment scholarships work just like vouchers. They take money out of public schools and put them into private schools. And in this case, let me finish. When we are 50th in the country in funding, and we're going to take this seriously, we need to fund public schools first and foremost. And if your concern is students with disabilities, then why not keep it there? But instead, the intent is a universal voucher program to privatize public education. That is the overall goal here. And when that happens, we will have a society of haves and have-nots immediately. And as a product of Arizona public schools, with 2 daughters in public schools, I'm not going to let that happen.
Angel, we still haven't heard your thoughts about education. We've heard about the economy.
Yes.
Education.
We need to make sure that everyone is paying their fair share in taxes, and that's not happening. And as far as the expansion of the voucher system, the ESAs, we've got, if we're going to fully fund K through 12 public education and give teachers and staff a much-needed pay raise, improve the infrastructure, improve the technology, replace textbooks that are 20 years old, we can't afford to have a parallel system like we have with the charter schools, there's been plenty of articles in the news media where they've been, some bad actors there who've been, getting rich off the taxpayer dollar. So we need to be frugal with every taxpayer dollar that we're spending, and we can't afford to be subsidizing private school education. I'm all for if there are children with special needs in the program, that's fine, but we can't afford to expand it to all Arizona students, which I believe that's the intent.
Angel just mentioned charter schools and the problems. We've been hearing about the problems, and they are stunning. You have now come out in support of reform for Why now?
I want to see reform inside our charter schools. You know, David was part of the organization when he worked in education in the 90s that put the framework together for charter schools. He sat on a charter school board. He missed more than half the meetings. Charters, in many ways, I think choice is a good thing, but where we have improvement on accountability or transparency or procurement, I want to fix that. Charters are still very much in their infancy, and I think there's a lot of improvement that can happen there. And Ted, the question that's not being answered, and I have to stand here or sit here and show you my record on K-12 education, the dollars I've been able to put in over the last 3 years. But David isn't talking at all about his plan. How is he going to fund the programs that he wants to move forward? He wanted to double income taxes for people in the state of Arizona. That's no longer on the ballot. He still is talking through all the things that he wants to do, but he has no funding plan.
Please.
Well, let's start with charter schools and accountability. This is another example of Doug Ducey being a follower and not a leader. It is only now, after pressure and fear of losing your political position, that you stand up to this issue. For 4 years now, multiple years now, I've made it clear we needed more accountability and transparency on behalf of charter schools. And only now, once again, a problem when Doug Ducey walked in the door is a problem today, and he is promising that in the next administration, sometime in the future, there will be a solution. This is a common theme we're going to see throughout the night.
No education plan,
because
Ted.
this is
no education plan.
And with respect to an education plan,
yes,
I am going to challenge the legislature, invite those 75,000 teachers who were out there to join me, to go to the legislature and put another initiative on the ballot. Because Arizonans want to vote. They want a voice. They want an opportunity to invest in their public schools. And if that doesn't happen, we will return back for another citizen initiative.
So the initiative was to double income tax in the state of Arizona. The Joint Legislative Budget Committee said it would raise income tax on everyone because it didn't protect indexing. And you said even after that was done, that wouldn't be enough. So then where are you going to raise taxes?
Ted, I don't understand why Doug Ducey is talking about a plan that is not on the ballot, that has been taken off by a
But that was your plan,
David. That was, and you know.
So you don't have a plan.
And I'll say it again. That was past tense. My plan, as governor, in my first administration, not to wait until the very end, but to start off and go to the legislature and push to have an initiative, work with the business community and others to put an initiative on the ballot.
That's not a plan. That's hope is not a plan.
And the 75,000 teachers to join me to do that. And if that won't happen, to go to a citizen initiative.
And I want to get back to charters. I know we were there at some point in the past here. Democrats 11 times tried to change charters, tried to push for more reform and more regulation. Republicans weren't. They killed them all, and you are nowhere to be found. Now you want reform. Why now?
Well, first let me say, I think that school choice is a good thing. And I think that public charters have been a benefit to the state of Arizona. We've got 200,000 kids in public charter schools. Like I said, David sits on a charter school board. He's missed half the meetings. But I'd like to see reform because we're seeing some of these things where there's a room for improvement on procurement or financial reporting. And this is what you do when you see an issue, you can address it.
Okay,
Ted,
but hold on a second.
He didn't see this issue.
But here's the thing.
This has been an issue for years.
He sees an issue, he addresses it, he changes.
What
Do you want a governor who doesn't change?
I want a governor who's going to lead and not follow. I want a governor who not only after public pressure is going to stand up. The same situation happened with Red for Ed. On a Wednesday, you mentioned that it was a political circus, and the next day went forward with 20 for 20. Why?
Let's get the facts straight on Red for Ed.
Why?
Let's get the facts straight.
Will you please stop interrupting me?
Finish your thought, please.
And why? Because you felt the political pressure. With respect to charter and the charter school board, I'm a teacher. I teach at night. And on 2 semesters, my class was on the exact same night as the charter school board. I fulfilled my responsibilities, but I was in class.
The Red for Ed, you called it political theater.
I was talking about the union, the lawyers, and the activists. I am on the side of the teachers. And when we had the amount of dollars available inside our general fund where I could sit in front of the teachers and present a plan that we could deliver on that could increase taxes by 20%, I was the first one out there. It was the equivalent on April 12th of rolling out an entirely new budget, working with the legislature to pass it and advance appropriate it. I'm proud that our teachers are going to have a 20% increase. I'm not really necessarily caring about who gets the credit, David, and you shouldn't have been asking people to vote against it for politics.
Does David have a point, though,
Is that leadership?
that you responded as opposed to led on this particular issue?
Well, no, I would say that we led. Proposition 123 was leading. Proposition 301 was leading. But I would also say we had to answer an issue for the teachers. I was working with the superintendents. They said, Governor, we would like to see something that's beyond a one-year budget. If you could show a 3 to 5 year plan, we can move forward. We put together a 3-year plan, which is a 20% pay increase, and I signed it into law. You worked against it.
Was the Red for Ed movement more political than it should have been?
So in this case, 123 was not leading, it was misleading. You said that Step 4 was going to be positive for public schools, and it hasn't been. Step 4 was a universal expansion of empowerment scholarships, which are essentially vouchers. With respect to teachers, there are 75,000 of them, and they're asking to sign a Red for Ed pledge if you stand with them. I have signed it. And if you were on their side, then have you signed it, and would you be willing to sign it?
No, what I've signed is a budget that will deliver them a 20% pay increase. I don't sign activist pledges. I sign state budgets.
He hasn't signed it.
And you haven't answered my question.
Sure.
Was this movement more political than it should have been?
No, I thought the teachers did an amazing job. And
on the day this movement started,
Ducey,
it endorsed David.
Will you let me finish? Mr. Ducey, will you let me finish, please? I am respectful and let you finish your statements, and I'm asking you to do the same.
Please.
Now, that being said, our teachers are in a situation where right now we are the second worst state in the country to be a teacher. It's a report that came out today from Wallet Hub that says we are the second worst state to be a teacher.
They haven't factored in.
Mr. Ducey, once again, will you let me finish?
This is an exchange.
This is an exchange. Let him respond, please.
This is an exchange. It's not a monologue, David. Okay, all three of us are here, and that survey has not factored in the 20% pay increase that is taken by your numbers, Arizona teachers from 40th to 16th.
That survey takes into account many things. And one of them is the per pupil teacher ratio, for example, that is included in that. Arizona teachers are facing some of the worst circumstances in the country. And they stood up and they used their collective voice to say something and do something about it. I stood with them.
All right,
and I will
Angel,
continue to stand with them.
Did you stand with Red for Ed? Did you stand for those teachers?
Yes,
and if so, how?
Well, yes, of course. I'm a union member, so of course I signed the pledge, and they're my fellow union members, so of course I would be there with them. I think the problem when it comes to Governor Ducey, your plan is that this 20 for 20 isn't really a 20% increase. The other thing that's happening is that that Governor Ducey and the state legislature really passed the buck on to the school districts. We're seeing we just had a property budget override in Levine School District 2 years ago. We're going to see another budget override this year. So the state legislature and Governor Ducey really haven't put any more money, any funds into it. It's being passed on to property owners who have to pay higher property taxes.
Respond, please.
Well, I want to say that there's a record amount of money that is going into K-12 education. I believe there is more needed. But like I said, no excuses. I came into office 3 years ago in a straitjacket with the $1 billion budget deficit. The fact that we've been able to put Proposition 123, Proposition 301, the Teachers Academy, and the 20% pay increase is going in the right direction. And there's more that's necessary. And we have more funds that we can put into K-12 education. But we also have public safety in the state. We have child safety. We have border security. There's all types of things that you need to do as governor. I want to address this. I have been on the side of the teachers. I'm going to work with the teachers, and we're going to continue. Our state is growing. It's a fast-growing economy, and it puts us in a position to have these reforms where we can get dollars into the classroom.
I'm happy to talk about this. You mention often that Maricopa County is the fastest-growing county in the state. And yet, prior to teachers pushing and advocating for a raise, all you were going to afford them was a 2% raise over 4 years. How is it that we are the fastest growing county, Maricopa County, in the state, and all we can afford our hardworking teachers is a 2% raise, while your staff was getting a 20% raise?
Okay, let me address this. Okay, first of all, I want to say that our teachers were getting there was a 9% increase from 2015 until this past year.
Was that before?
That was before. That was before
the protests.
That was before the protest. That was a 9% raise in dollars available for teacher compensation, both raises and hiring new teachers. And David, The budget in the governor's office was $7 million when I came into the office. It's $7 million today. Not one additional dollar has been spent in the governor's office. And this is why I'm going to ask the viewers to go to factcheckgarcia.com, because you're very good at this deception.
Well, go back to teachers for just a second. Look, we're in a circumstance right here where we
So do you want to correct yourself on the governor's office budget?
Mr. Ducey, in this case, we are talking about standing with teachers who are making it clear that they need a change. And to stand with them means that you sign the Red for Ed pledge. In addition, you're yet to meet with them to meet their
I meet with teachers all the time. I meet with teachers all the time. I will continue to meet with teachers all the time. I'm not meeting with teachers on your campaign.
Let's talk about immigration and customs enforcement. Do you want to abolish ICE?
Never said that, and the answer is no.
Do you want to replace ICE? Do you want to change ICE?
What we need is an immigration system that works. And that includes three things. It includes security, lawful entry for those ready to enter the United States and contribute and to be a place of refuge. And with this respect, I would be happy to talk about immigration because there's a few things. Number one, I am against Trump's wall, and I'd like to know where Mr. Ducey stands on that. But number two, to give this idea that in any way I would have unsafe conditions for Arizona is against who I am. I joined the military when I was 17. I took an oath to defend the United States and our Constitution. I take it seriously today, and I will take that oath with me to the governor's office. But the reason people are talking about this issue right now is largely because of the attack ads against me. And so person to person, I'd like to know your opinion of those ads.
Well, first,
let him give his opinion.
First, can I say I honor your service. I thank you for your service. I'm proud of my background as a business person, and this election is going to be decided on the issues of the future. David and his campaign would like to abolish ICE. They don't want to see any wall on our southern border. They would like to remove the National Guard from the border, and he would like to defund the Border Strike Force. This is a really radical departure from what public safety has been in the state of Arizona. These are David's stated positions.
They are not.
And they are not.
Mr. Ducey, well, I will state them again for you so that we are clear.
David, can I finish?
Let him finish, but he did just say he did not want to abolish ICE.
He knows, he's a college professor. He knows the power of words. This is why if you go to factcheckgarcia.com, you'll see David in his own words talk about his border plan.
Okay. Let's talk about the Border Patrol, which I think you mentioned as well. You've called this a political ploy, I believe. What does that mean?
It means that when politicians who have never worn a uniform to protect anything prance in front of those who do for their own political gain, that is a political ploy. My job when I was in the infantrymen was to protect. And it's very simple. You do your job as a unit so that others can do theirs. The first thing that our border sheriffs are asking is for our highways to be patrolled 24/7. That has not happened. And I'm going to preview what's coming next. It will happen in the future because once again, we have another half measure and another broken promise.
Your job as governor is public safety for the state of Arizona. David Garcia has hired staffers who tweet out that America is an S-hole country, that they can F the police. He takes endorsements from organizations that are radical left-wing organizations that say F the Border Patrol. David, you're known by the company you keep. That's the company you keep on your campaign. Those are the plans that you have going forward for our border. And I'm getting a little bit tired of your attacks on law enforcement. The people in the Border Strike Force are brave men and women that put themselves in harm's way to interdict 12 million hits of fentanyl, each one of them lethal, 17 million hits of heroin. They've kept this poison out of our state and out of our schools, and I don't know why David Garcia wants to defund them.
To be clear, I want us to do our duty. And our duty is to patrol the highways 24/7. That is not happening. The border sheriffs are asking. That is our role. And with respect to the Border Strike Force, it is not about the men and women who are doing great work. It is about you standing in front of them as somebody who has never worn a uniform and taking credit for their work.
Why is there not a 24/7 down there? What's going on? And some of these sheriffs down there are saying DPS simply does not have the
DPS
equipment.
is doing a great job. DPS is working with our border sheriffs, our local law enforcement, and our border agents to patrol our highways. They're doing a terrific job. I put out the statistics.
Are they patrolling them 24/7?
I put out that we have law enforcement 24/7 in the state of Arizona.
Our DPS patrolling
They are
the highways
working with
24/7.
local law enforcement to focus on the drugs, the human trafficking, the child sex trafficking. And David,
From the hours of 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., they are left unguarded for those traffickers.
David wants to defund the Border Strike Force, the very force that I'm bragging on, brave men and women that have done a lot to clean up the drugs and human trafficking that's happening in Arizona. Would you address that? You want to defund it.
Here's what I want to do. I want the funding to go to patrolling our highways 24/7. When you walked into office, once again, you said that was going to be your commitment. It is another broken promise. That has not been done. From the hours of 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., the very people that you would like to keep out of Arizona are using our highways to get in.
Because we have been prioritizing dollars for schools, and we want to have public safety in the state of Arizona. We're able to do both, and funding formulas are being
And so the
restored.
answer is they're left unpatrolled. I'd like to take a second and talk about my position on border, on law enforcement.
We will in just a second.
Mind?
I want to hear Angel first, though. Angel, what are you thinking of this?
Yeah, with all due respect, Governor, if we want safe and secure border towns, Nogales, where I lived when I was a young child, Yuma, Douglas, Bisbee, what we need to do is ensure that the economies of Mexico and Central and South America, that they have strong and resilient economies. People are fleeing poverty in these nations. Up to 70% of the Mexican population lives in poverty. So one thing, as workers, we would be negotiating international trade agreements that benefit working people, that don't drive down wages, that don't force governments to cut funding for education and social programs for health care. So we need to make sure that our economies, as workers, as union members, as Greens, we support strong and resilient economies. So that's what's going to help address the root cause of migration to the United States and Canada. On the flip side, as union members and as Greens, we support an immigration policy that respects our fellow worker and their families, irrespective of where they've come from. So we shouldn't be scapegoating and demonizing people who are just looking for a better life, And so we need to exponentially expand the number of work and student visas that are available to people when they come to this country. They shouldn't have to wait 5, 10, 15 years, 20 years to get a piece of paper that gives them freedom to make a better life for themselves and their families.
Let me address this, and let me also address our border communities. The Democratic mayors of border towns like Douglas, Robert Uribe, has endorsed my campaign. So has Mayor Sanchez in San Luis, and so has Mayor Dolan in Nogales. And this is because their economies are starting to see a turnaround. They see the relationship that we have with Mexico, and they value border security in these border towns. This is something we're doing across the board. We want to see more of it happening. But another thing I want to talk about that I think is important, the ability to work with others, the ability to work across the aisle. When I talk about Proposition 123, that was done in a bipartisan way. The Teachers Academy, that was Fred Duvall's idea in the previous campaign that I worked with him to bring to life. And I have Democratic mayors on the border that like what we're doing in terms of border security and the border strike force. And I've got an opponent here that wants to defund it and to take the physical barrier off the border.
Hold on a second.
What I'll say, Governor, is that we're not going to have, as I stated earlier, we're not going to have safe and secure border towns until Mexico and the countries of Central and South America have strong and resilient economies. They're fleeing poverty. That's why they're coming.
Okay, David, please. And you are going to talk about your immigration policy and your border security policy.
This is the border sheriffs are asking for the Department of Public Safety to patrol the highways 24/7. That is our basic responsibility. And the answer is it is not being done right now. That needs to be the priority. You said that was the priority. And once again, it is a half measure and a broken promise. With respect to the company that we keep, 7 members of departments heads of your administration have been indicted or in otherwise in legal trouble. That is the company you keep. And with law enforcement, I have tremendous respect for law enforcement. But I got to tell you, law enforcement and that idea of respect comes with trust. Governor, when I was a young man and I was in high school, we had a family party, and the police were called. And at the end of that episode, my dad was called a taco bender and taken down to the Mesa Police Department. We followed. And we followed only to find out that they had opened the door and let him walk home on his own, a proud Army veteran. And although I can't ever forget that, I learned from it. And I learned that the communities, and in order to have law enforcement be most effective, you need to have trust between law enforcement and the communities that they serve. And I'm going to lead that courageous discussion.
David, my dad was a cop. I've got an excellent relationship with law enforcement in this state, and I work in a partnership type fashion, not only with local law enforcement, but our border strike force and our state troopers. David, you have hired people that are posting on social media, F the police, calling the United States an S-hole country, and you're taking endorsements from organizations that are saying F the Border Patrol. That's what you're doing. And yes, we're making a lot of changes in state government. I want to address that. But what about the people that you're hiring and what they're putting out there, and you don't even terminate them?
She resigned. And in that case, she's a young staffer who made a mistake that she is going to learn from. But you have hired 7 people who have been indicted or are otherwise in legal trouble to lead the Arizona government. That is
Let me
your
talk about
administration.
Arizona government.
Well,
if I
talk
can.
about the 7
Let me
people
talk
who have
about.
been indicted.
Please talk about some of the hiring decisions.
Yes,
What
I
what
will.
happened there?
How about the hiring decision at the Department of Child Safety, which was the most broken agency, if not the state, possibly in the country, and last year was nationally recognized for the turnaround. When you're going to make some changes in state government, when you're going to make it more effective, more efficient, more accountable, more customer service oriented, you're going to have some issues. We've had some disruption because we're improving and streamlining and bringing technology.
Have up to 7 department heads, or have they been in legal trouble or otherwise indicted in your administration?
David, there's 35,000.
It is a question, Governor.
The largest organization you've ever run is your campaign, and you're taking
associate
endorsements.
for the state of
You're
Arizona.
taking endorsements from
And
people that want to shut down the Border Patrol, and you've
I
got people
want
that
us
are
to
posting
do
out
our
negative
job.
things.
You are yet
on
to
Arizona.
answer the question.
Our state government is improving.
Our
and
highways,
when we have an
our
issue,
highways are not guarded for 4 hours a night.
Let's get.
we have
basic
24-hour law
responsibility.
enforcement in Arizona. You're deceiving. You're intentionally
Let's
deceiving.
get back to the
It is not my report, by the way. That came out.
Let's
from
get back to
another
the
source.
economy here, and it was referred to earlier. Arizona is doing well. The United States is doing well. The West is doing well. How are we special? How are we different?
We were leading this beforehand in terms of coming out of the downturn in the state of Arizona. We've got a great place to live. 70% of the adults in Arizona were born somewhere else, and they're moving here. I think of us as a startup state, a place that's welcome to entrepreneurs. And this has been validated by companies like Apple and Caterpillar and Comcast, and most recently Infosys. We are taking these companies from California. We're winning headquarter offices even from Texas. We're in a dynamic, competitive environment with other states.
We are last routinely, with the exception of New Mexico, in job growth.
How is somebody going to lead the state when all they want to do is dump on the state? When all they want to do is talk about how bad we're doing? When we're leading the nation in many of these states around our economy.
We are not. We are behind the rest of our western states. And the number one reason why is, instead of focusing on people coming in, what about the 7 million people that are in Arizona today?
That's my focus every day.
How are we investing in their education, higher education, for example? Under your administration, community colleges were zeroed out. And when you zero out community colleges, you zero out opportunity.
I believe, Angel, you wanted to get in here?
Yeah, with all due respect, Governor, I think Mr. Garcia and the governor are missing the point, is that we can't, it's not about growing the economy, and we can't have a strong economy when 1 in 7 Arizonans is living in poverty. We need to strengthen our economy. That should be the focus, getting more workers organized into the union of their choice. I've been able to improve my standard of living. When I started in the airline industry 31 years ago, we were the lowest paid in the industry because we've organized for many years, and now we set the industry standard for pay. We need to be using the purchasing power of our anchor institutions, the universities, the hospitals, our community colleges, and create worker-owned businesses in the rural communities, not just here in Maricopa County. And so strengthening the economy should be our focus, not growing the economy. The economy is booming, yes, but it's booming for the top 1%, the billionaires, the people on Wall Street. We need to be able to grow the economy for the people who are at the bottom.
David, you talked. The governor talked about working with people, working across the aisle, getting things done with those who might not be of your political party. How would you work with local businesses, Chamber of Commerce, for example, which supports the governor and not you?
I have worked with Chamber of Commerces and businesses my entire career in a partnership about education and business. In 2014, as superintendent of public instruction, I received the endorsement of the Arizona Chamber of Commerce, for example. And in my career working at the state legislature, I worked with people from both parties. I will continue to do that. But what we need to have in Arizona is a system where we do not have CEOs in Arizona who are getting a 47% raise over 1 year, while the rest of Arizona, folks like my dad who got up in the morning before the sun came up and combed his hair, got a 4% raise. And an economy in Arizona where teachers are working 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet. It is those folks that I'm looking at.
I want to see everybody in the state of Arizona get a raise. Right now we've got more jobs available than we have people to fill them. And speaking of the economy, the chambers have endorsed me, leaders and job creators. It's why our economy is booming. But I also want to say in terms of education, David's former boss, Jaime Molera, the superintendent of public instruction, has endorsed my campaign. Lisa Keegan, the superintendent of public instruction, has endorsed my campaign because they think I have a plan that will not only deal with education, but grow our economy and protect our public safety. These are significant endorsements.
I am not surprised that 2 Republicans have endorsed.
What about Mario Diaz?
I have not.
What about Mario Diaz, who was Janet Napolitano's
Are you paying
campaign
Mario
manager? What about Jerry Sanchez?
Mr. Ducey, are you paying,
what about Jerry Sanchez?
Are you paying Mario
I'm not
Diaz?
paying Jerry Sanchez.
Are you paying?
I'm not paying
Mario
Robert
Diaz?
Uribe.
I have a specific
I'm not paying
question.
John Dolan.
Are you paying Mario
Mario Diaz is working on our campaign.
So you're paying a person
This
and
is
asking
Janet
them for their
Napolitano's
endorsement.
campaign manager is helping our campaign.
Are you paying Mario Diaz?
Do you have a campaign staff?
My question is,
do you
are
have
you
a
paying
campaign
Mario Diaz? You mentioned yes.
Do you have a
of course
campaign
he's
staff?
going to back you. If you pay somebody, I wouldn't expect them not to endorse you.
Well, Jaime Molera, Lisa Graham Keegan, the border mayors who are Democrats. You know, I worked with Katie Hobbs to clear the rape kits. We passed the American Civics Act in a bipartisan way. We got the 20% pay increase. When you're the governor, you have to work across the aisle. You can't just lead a march or a resistance. You have to work with others on behalf of the state of Arizona. David is leading a protest. He is not running to be a leader of the state.
Is that valid, that your campaign is basically a protest? Is this a referendum on the governor, a referendum on Republicans, a referendum on Donald Trump?
This is a referendum on Doug Ducey, and the problems when he walked in the door are still today's problems. Half measures and broken promises. Education is still one of the lowest funded in the country. We're yet to have our borders, our highways patrolled. Charter school accountability was a problem, and the governor, Mr. Ducey, said they didn't care how much CEOs made. That was a problem.
Ted,
and so over and over again, we're seeing a common theme here. They were a problem when you walked in the door. They remain a problem today. There are broken promises that in the future that you may address.
And he's presented no plan. He has no plan to do what he wants to do. I think putting in a 10% increase in per pupil spending, $2.7 billion, is a pretty good first step. And I've said the entire time there's more to do. And I want to address that while I continue to...
Hold on. Hold on a second.
In the first term, we've got a momentum in Arizona right now that I would want to build on. He has no plan, but he has a lot of criticisms.
How would his election challenge the economic growth that we're seeing right now? How would it put it in danger?
So I've used the Super Bowl, the College Football National Championship, the NCAA Final Four to help build Arizona's economy, along with spring training and the Waste Management Phoenix Open. So I've sat down with a lot of business leaders and decision makers from outside of the state. If you were to double our income taxes in the state of Arizona, you wouldn't even get the sit down. They would fly right over us to Texas that has a zero income tax, or Nevada that has a zero income tax. tax, or to Utah or Colorado, you would shut down the state's economy. It's reckless and it's a radical idea.
I don't understand why Mr. Ducey keeps talking about an initiative
because that was your plan. That was your plan. What happened to it?
But do you support that idea?
I support going to the legislature and working with them and putting together an initiative.
Does he look like he's going to work with people on both sides of the aisle, Ted?
I have worked with people on both sides of the aisle.
But it sounds as though he wants dedicated funding, a dedicated source for education. Do you want a dedicated source?
When you say dedicated funding, what you're talking about is a tax increase. Now, he's already said that he wants to raise taxes, double it on individuals. You want to raise taxes on businesses. Who else and what else do you want to take money from?
We need to raise revenue in this state, and we need to stop.
Our revenue's growing.
Our revenue is behind the rest of our western states. And in addition, when are we going to stop this sky is falling idea about what we can't do? Let me give you a concrete example. You were against Proposition 206, the minimum wage increase. You made a very similar argument. It was going to crush businesses and the economy. And even though you did not know what was possible and your vision was limited, the people of Arizona passed it. And what has happened?
Okay,
I don't want to get on hell after you respond.
First, I was concerned about our disabled community with Proposition 206. Fortunately, we were able to protect them. David, business owners have a choice when they make an investment or they relocate. People have been voting with their feet and coming to the state of Arizona. With your income tax plan alone, you risk the entire state's economy. I want to have a K-12 education.
Hold on.
And also, I want to say factcheckgarcia.com, because he keeps saying last and he keeps saying 50th. By the own measures that he works, the teachers have moved from 40th to 16th, and I want to see them get more down to 16th.
On the measures
to
get in here, please. Hold on.
In terms of pay.
Hold on.
Governor, with all due respect, if we're going to strengthen our economy, we need other models than the corporate model. It's great that we have companies that are moving to Arizona, but number one, are they paying a living wage and a wage that can survive? You talked about the fact that that there are a lot of jobs that are going unfilled, but do these jobs pay a living wage where people can survive? Some people are working 2 jobs in order to be able to put food on the table and keep a roof over their head. But I also want to raise a larger issue with both my opponents, is that Governor Ducey's raised, I believe, over $4.7 million for his election. That doesn't include the negative attack ads against Mr. Garcia. Mr. Garcia has raised over $1 million for this election. The job only pays $95,000 a year. We've got to get back to the roots of a government of, by, and for the people. What we have, unfortunately, because of the concentration of wealth, is a government of, by, and for the corporation. They're the ones that are setting policy. They're the ones that are helping to get legislators elected in our state legislature and in the Congress.
I'm glad you brought up the attack ads, because I believe, and I want to know directly from you, do you agree with the content and tone of those ads?
I'm responsible for my own ads. I stand behind my ads.
But you're a member of the Republican governors.
They've had a message that shows a contrast in what we're doing. And it also shows, David, what you want to do, what your policies are that you are not addressing today. And I have to clear up a misstatement that David put out in terms of where we rank in terms of state and growth. We're at a record level in our general fund right now, $432 million that we can move into K-12 education and other things that are needed in the state. Now, Ted, hang on, this is important. The CBO, an independent federal agency, projects $1.5 billion additional for Arizona over the next 5 years. This is a significant amount of revenue. David's plan is to go out and to double the taxes.
And it remains behind other states. I'm asking you your personal opinion of the content and of the tone of those ads.
Yes, David, I think the ads that have been out on you are public service announcements. People need to know where you stand.
I am a father, I'm a father of 2 daughters.
And I'm a father of 3 sons.
You believe that I would put them and Arizona at risk? You believe that?
If you would defund the border strike force, if you would remove ICE, if you would take the border agents off the border.
I've said over and over again.
Those are your words,
No,
David.
they are not. They are not my words. I am very specific. We need to have highway patrol 24/7. And the fact that they are also bigoted in the sense that they darken my face and scare families. You believe that as a public service announcement?
Come on, David.
Do you think
that the Jaime Molera would have endorsed me? Do you think that the border mayors from Nogales and San Luis? David, this is desperate. It's desperate, and it's because you're losing.
This is a common dominant narrative is when politicians get in trouble, they start to pit people against each other along the idea of race and class. And I find it interesting that in this case you bring up two Latinos to defend your position.
David,
it says there
can I
that you
finish,
know
Ted?
that the
Okay.
heart of
Hey,
this is bigoted and
Okay,
racist.
the heart is bigoted and racist. And we're running out of time, so I need a response.
David, my issues aren't with you as a person. They are clearly with your policies. Your
You said it was
policies
a
on the
public service
the
announcement.
policies on budget. People know where you need to stand in terms of doubling their taxes. That you want to defund the border strike force, and that you would drive our
Okay.
economy off a cliff. It's your policies, David.
And that's where we have to stand. You okay with that, Angel? I think we got to stop it right there. Time now for closing statements, and going in reverse order of our opening statements. We start with Governor Doug Ducey.
When the Arizona Republic endorsed me 4 years ago, they said that I would be Arizona's governor for tough times. Well, today, 4 years later, Arizona is not in tough times. Our economy is booming. Our general fund is overflowing with dollars. Now, we're going to get this 20% pay increase to our teachers, but I want to be your governor for the next 4 years because I want to secure Arizona's future. We are on the verge of a juggernaut of jobs for the state of Arizona that will help fund all the needs from K-12 education, public safety, and child safety in our state. It's been my honor to be your governor the last 4 years. I hope you see a dramatic difference between my plans and those of my opponent. I would ask you go to factcheckgarcia.com. And if you want more information on my campaign, you can go to dougducey.com, Doug Ducey on Facebook, or at Doug Ducey on Twitter. I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And next up, we have Angel Torres.
Thank you, Ted, and thank you to the Arizona Citizens Clean Election Commission for the invitation, and thanks to Governor Ducey and Mr. Garcia for the opportunity to debate. My fellow Arizonans, we face serious challenges as we move forward. The struggle to get our fellow Arizonans out of poverty. How are we going to fully fund public education here in the state? How are we going to ensure that we have a safe and sustainable water supply for decades to come? Please visit my website at torresforarizona.com, and I respectfully request your vote on Tuesday, November 6th. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And for our final closing statement, we turn to David Garcia.
I'm David Garcia, and I am running to be governor of my home state. I am running to invest in public schools. I am running to stamp corruption out of state government, and I am running to create an economy that works for all of Arizona. The basis of opportunity in the American dream is public education, and we will have a governor, never have a governor more committed to public schools than me. We also need a governor with integrity, one that is not going to be a rubber stamp for Trump, and one that isn't going to resort to political tricks and deception in order to win. And lastly, we need a governor that is going to look out for the people of Arizona, to make sure that we have an economy that prospers for all of Arizonans, so that we don't have teachers working 2 or 3 jobs anymore. We need a governor who is from us, for us, ready to fight for the people of Arizona. I will be that governor, and I will be proud. I would be proud to have your vote. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Good debate. Thank you for watching this special Election 2018 edition of Arizona Horizon, sponsored by Clean Elections, featuring the candidates for Arizona governor. Keep watching Arizona Horizon this election season for more debates, including Wednesday. It's Wednesday night when we hear from the candidates for state treasurer. That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thanks again for joining us. You have a great evening.